The story begins with the most prominent family among the Kamsuk families, the Kamsuk Seol family. Through the vision technique of the Six Sword Trials, he heard that on a cold winter day, a poorly dressed couple abandoned a child at the gate of the Kamsuk Seol house and disappeared. The child was picked up by a nanny and ended up as a servant at the Seol house. The child was Jawan Yeop. He had been serving the household for almost 10 years now. He said that others claimed that even a village schooldog could recite poetry after 3 years. But as he grew up there, he came to realize one thing. Contrary to public opinion, their master was an extremely foolish person. The master of the house, Seol Said Deok, performed the secret technique of the Kamsuk Seol family every morning. His appearance was akin to a white crane dancing, which led to the naming of his sword technique as white crane swordsmanship. However, by seeing such a sight every day, he could find an aspect in the master's swordplay that bothered him. The white crane swordsmanship that he perceived emphasized defense and adopted a posture that could easily withdraw at any moment and become stronger in the next breath. While thinking about this, he said that, however, in the latter part of the master's 5th sword stroke, there was. But he was suddenly interrupted by an old man who asked him what he was doing there again. He replied to the old man that the swordsmanship was so impressive that he momentarily lost himself and just watched in awe. The old man said to him, disrespecting him, that a lowly servant like him could not understand it even if he saw it. He just laughed and thought that he would talk about the aspects of the white crane swordsmanship that bothered him in the master's display some other time. But he said that anyway. The old man must have researched that sword technique for decades, yet even in the eyes of a lowly servant like him, the flaws in the swordsmanship were apparent. His grandpa saw him and told him that he needed to stop bothering their master and come to him right now. Hearing this, he hurriedly went to his grandpa and asked him why he was there. His grandpa said to him that even if it was amazing, it was not polite for a servant like them to stare at their master so openly, and that he needed to be more careful. He looked at the old man and thought that it was hard to believe that such a person was a top-notch martial artist in the harem. He also said that there was another reason why he considered their master a foolish person. He said that his master's first marriage partner was a woman named Minga Yong. It was said that he treated Lady Min poorly, even though he, who only heard stories through the family members and other servants while running errands, could see how great Lady Min was. He said that, however, the two clashed in opinions at crucial decisions. And upon reflection, no matter how many times, Lady Min's thoughts were correct. He said that during important decisions, everyone at the Seol family followed Lady Min and respected her, while the head of the family, Seol Saedeok, was jealous of Lady Min's intelligence, and that caused him to gradually treat her more coldly, and to the point that his coldness was extended towards his own children, and did not change until the moment Lady Min passed away. He said that by pushing his family away with his foolishness, and even losing his wise wife, it was undeniable that their master was truly a foolish person. But he said that for now he would leave that background story of the Seol family aside and delve into his story, the more precisely story. While Subiom, looking at him like this, guises his young master, while wandering around and looking to him like that, and suddenly he approached him, while he happy that their harvest that day was great once again. His young master grabbed his clothes by the neck. He asked who dared to grab his clothes, but he did not expect that the one who grabbed his clothes was his young master. He was shocked by it. His young master looked at him like that, and the story switched to telling his story and showed the scene of him passing by in the town. He was picked up by the prison camp and served as a slave. He started running errands around their town when he was around 7 years old. As a result, he started paying attention to various things happening in their neighborhood. He saw a guy that he had seen over and over, always trying to steal food. He said that most of the people of his age that he met on the streets were orphans just like him. He said that since they did not have money, they filled their stomachs by stealing food from other people's stores. But any of them got caught because they were not great thieves and experts like him. Most of them were often beaten until their souls escaped. He said that because he was different, he could feel how many eyes were watching him even without looking around. He instinctively knew how to move along a certain path to avoid the attention of people around him. That was how he got all of that without arousing the store owner's suspicion. He had been picking dumplings, rice cakes, and many more. He also said that the orphans in that village who were given that naturally followed him. Because of his special ability, he alleviated the children's hunger. He said that it was not a very bad feeling. He said that that day, as usual, he was excited to pick up his harvest and head to his home, but he never imagined that a disaster was waiting for him. It showed back, where his young master grabbed him. His young master said to him that the dumplings that he was holding were from Mr. Hong's dumpling shop. He also said that the snack was from the shop next to the alley. He also mentioned that he also stole the rice cake from Mr. Yu's shop. He asked him since when he had been stealing like that. He said to him that he did not know what he was talking about. He wondered how his young master catch him stealing, and he wondered how his young master knew exactly where he stole it from. He also said that he never saw his young master in the market, so how that was possible. While he was wondering that, his young master approached him and said to him that he was doing bad, and even lying. He kicked him in the stomach and he fell down on the ground. He thought that he had done that over 10 times, so how come he never noticed that his young master was watching him? His young master asked him if he was still planning on lying. His body was shaking. He thought that he was completely caught off guard. He said that he was scared. Everything he did in front of his young master seemed to be visible to him as clearly as the inside of Buddha's palm. However, his fear was beyond the fear of getting a kick or a slap. It was more fundamental. It was the fear that there was someone who could see right through him. While feeling that, his young master said to him that it was understandable to steal once out of hunger, but if he insisted on stealing every time, he would be nothing but a thief for the rest of his life, and said that it was a dirty and shameful thing. It seemed that his young master was not happy and disappointed with him. While his young master scolded him, he realized that his young master was deliberately scolding him in a crowded place to make his face known on the street. But his young master said to him that outside the front door of their house, there was a hole under the roots of the Zelkova tree. He would put one of his own wallets there every day, whenever he went out to run errands. He said to him that he could take it with him and use it to buy food. But he said in return that if he stole just one more time from now on, he slowly drew his sword and said that he would cut off his wrist. He pointed his sword at him. He thought that if he did that, he would become a servant who had atoned for his sins and earned his master's gratitude. He thought that while his young master walked away, others saw this. He was kneeling there and thinking that he would no longer feel the thrill of stealing. He also said that knowing his movements was not enough. He had the memory to identify and guess the source of all stolen items. He had the insight to allow him to instantly understand what kind of person someone was just by looking at their eyes. He said that his young master was the scariest human being he knew. But he said that, however, the head of the family, Seol Said Deok, did not recognize the abilities or qualities of their young master. He said that he was infatuated with his new wife and was playing around with her. That was why he thought that the head of the family was stupid. The new wife mentioned there was the eldest daughter of the Gansukchu family, Chang Sanhee. She was a clever woman who married into the Seol family, the leading family in Gansu, with the intention of taking power. She used to get people in her family on her side and drive a wedge between the father and his son. At first, he was annoyed at the sight of his young master being bullied, but at some point, it became irritating. He wondered why his young master was left defenseless against Chang Sanhee's attack. He said that with his level of abilities, he could easily end her life with a single blow. He said that he did not like that at all. He said that even though he was a spectator, he thought that if there was a gap, he would have to join in on that. Then he noticed something. He saw Seol Sanghui, the second daughter of the Seol family, running in a hurry. He watched her. The girl was looking around, checking that there were no people around. He was hiding there. He said that the room that she was going to was the Grand Master's room. He wondered what was going on with Seol Sanghui, but he thought that it was so clear that she was up to something. After the girl was done and left, he jumped over there and went to see what she did there. He said that they were now even using their own daughter, but he said that he would not know unless he checked for himself what kind of trick it was. He said that in ancient times, conflict was something that grew and intensified, especially in the old-fashioned Seol family. He wondered if he would be able to see a proper fight between Chang Sanhee and his young master this time. He opened the door and looked around. He said that the clumsy Seol Sanghui would have definitely left a mark. His guess was correct and he found it. He went there and said that he would take a look and see what she was hiding there. He saw a scroll. He wondered if it was a land document. He thought that he got it, He said that they were planning to make a fuss and blame their young master for missing a land document. He said that if this was discovered, his young master would fall into an abyss with no return. While he was looking at that, he got an idea. He said that if that land deed was discovered in his young master's room, he would be guilty of the serious crime of embezzling the family fortune. He said that Chang Sanhe was definitely aiming for that. Even though his young master had caused him shame and agonizing pain, he had never broken his promise to pay for the children's food since that day. He thought that he was just trying to save face by changing his habits, and he thought that he would stop after giving a few pennies. He said that until now, whether it rained or snowed, his young master continued to put money in the hole. He said that he never broke his promises to his servants. He said that his young master was truly worthy of being the young master of a prestigious family. However, such righteousness did not prevent Chang Sanhe's petty tricks. He thought that even so, how could he be tricked by someone like Seo Sanghui? He wondered what would happen to his dignity, which was severely damaged by him. Moreover, he had been looking forward to the fight between them from the first, but it was over before it even started. He said that they thought that he was just going to watch that happen. He said that for a fight to be interesting, both sides needed to be evenly matched. He said that if one side was too strong, the fight would be over before it even started, and if one side was too weak, the fight would not be worth watching for him. He said that in either case there was no point in watching the fight. He asked himself what was the point of living if he could not enjoy a good fight. He said to himself that it was just him who was protecting his own happiness. He said that it was not because he was impressed by his young master's kindness, but because he respected his outstanding ability and righteousness. Or he asked himself if it was because he was kind to hungry children. He thought that he could not figure out his own self or what he was going to do. A few days later, at the Ji family, the head of the family and his wife Chusanmi and the girl Sanghui were there. His father asked him if he knew why he was called there. He said that he did not know why. He wondered why they were also there early in the morning. He wondered what they were up to now. His father said to him that he was trying to deny it, and said that the land deed that he recently signed was gone. He asked him if he did not know where it was. He said that he truly did not know where it was, and he did not know about it. Because of that, his father shouted loudly and said to him that the land deed grew some legs and ran away on its own. He said to him that he did not need to just sit there, because he needed to answer him. He also said to him that he really thought that he did not know anything. He said that while scolding him. Some of the servants saw this while they were so nervous and walking and cleaning there. Chusanmi said that she thought that he did not really know it for sure, but she had noticed that he had been going out to the slums a lot lately. She said that he was a grown adult now, so she was worried about what he might pick up. He looked at her like this, while controlling his emotions. Chusanmi also said to him that the bad habits of the little kids in the slums, and cut her words suddenly and said to him that she was worried about him. She looked at him like this, and Sangui seemed happy looking at him with evil intentions. He seemed to understand all of it, that these two were trying to frame him as a thief. Sanghui said that she remembered that yesterday, while she was in the laundry, she saw something like a scroll in his room. He wondered if he was unjustly accused there, all his hard work would be going to waste. He said that he had been putting up with that all the time to keep his promise to his grandmother. But he said that this kind of nonsense from them was shameful. He replied and said that the second daughter of the Seol family was helping out the servants. He said that it was unheard of, while telling this to her. He said to her that she had a good heart. She was so nervous, and it seemed that she did not expect that. She said that if that was so, she guessed he did not know because he was out in the slums. She told him this. His bad actions were always lying and beating their servants like he saw them as insects. His father could not see through their flimsy trick. The old man was so angry and shouted loudly. He ordered his servants to search his room immediately to find the scroll. They searched and found it. They said that the scroll was found. They said that the scroll was in his closet, just as their young lady said. He said that he knew it. He took the scroll. He thought that even their servant would be ashamed of the farce that was unfolding in their family. He thought this while his father started to look at the scroll. When he saw it, he was shocked. He wondered what it was. Chang Sanhe looked at him. His father said that it was not the land deed. It was graffiti. Subeom wondered what was happening. He realized something and said that it was ridiculous. He said that it was definitely the first form of the vision technique of the Six Sword Trials. He said that Jawun Yeop, our MC, did it. He said to his father that he hid it in his closet because he was ashamed of his drawing skills. He asked them if there was something wrong with it. He noticed him, while his father asked his wife. Our MC was surprised and wondered how he knew that he was there right away. He said that his young master was really a scary person. He asked his father if he could go now. His father was ashamed and said to him that of course he could, and he could go back now. But his sister Sanghui tried to stop his father from doing that. His mother said that she needed to stop it now. Now that the land deed theft incident came to an end, the land deed, which was the evidence in this case, was still in his hands. But he doubted that anyone would have imagined that the culprit would be a young servant who ran errands while he was getting the money from the hole beside the tree, where his young master put it as his promise to him. He said that he wondered how long his young master was going to let himself be pushed around like that. He said to him that he should at least know how to protect himself. He said that if he let those bastards take advantage of him every time, someone suddenly spoke, and he was shocked. That person said to him that it was him after all. That person was a girl, the lady Seol Suyeon, their young lady. She said to him that it seemed that he was surprised. She said sorry to him. He asked her what she was doing there at that hour of the morning. She said that she just thought that he would be stealing by now. She said that she heard from her brother that he was providing food to the hungry children. He said that, oh, he saw. He wondered that even their young lady was quite perceptive. His young lady said to him that even though stealing was not the right way to do things, she thought that he could be proud of himself for what he did. She said that it was good to know that there were still people in their world who knew the meaning of righteousness. He blushed and said that it was not. He said that it was not like that. He had a bad habit of stealing. And said that even though he helped their young master those times, he was just angry because he was beaten by the youngest daughter Sanghui. He said that he was not as good child as she thought of him. While saying that to her, she just smiled like this to him. And it seemed that she did not believe of what he said, and said that even so, she still wanted to thank him. She said that she was so glad that he was clever enough to help her brother. She said goodbye to him and left. He wondered if his young master would have definitely said that he was not clever, but a cunning bastard. He said that the kindness of being able to find good points in someone and talk about them, a gentle nature, where she did not get ahead of herself, despite being intelligent, and instead observed the surroundings first, and even if the so-called Chusanmi acted viciously, he wondered if she was holding back, because she was bound by the reputation of being the best in the world. He said that it was better to be a servant like him who had nothing to lose. He said that who cared about the honor of the family or the name of their ancestors. He said that both his young master and young lady, how were they going to cope with what they tried so hard to protect? After that, a servant ran hurriedly while saying the name of their young master, because an unexpected thing happened. The servant reported to him that his grandmother suddenly passed away. He was so angry hearing that. He seemed to be frustrated about what happened. He went there and saw that he was going to break down. He could not believe it. He approached his grandmother and took off the cover from her hand and touched it. He cried and remembered the days when his grandmother said to him that the internal fights within their family would only lead to unnecessary sacrifices. She said to him that he must always protect their Z family as the eldest son. She said that it was her wish, as his grandmother. He remembered that and apologized to his grandmother. He was so angry at that moment. At that moment, we saw that he was grieving. After that sad day, the funeral of their old lady was conducted in a gloomy atmosphere. Our MC and his grandpa were there. His grandpa said to him that they needed to quietly send her off. Our MC wondered how the lady Suyan was grieving. The sight of his young master suffering was almost too difficult for him. However, he could not intervene in things like that, as he did during the land document incident. He could only watch them from a distance. He looked at his grandpa. He seemed so sad, too. He wondered if the Ji family would fall into the hands of Chang Sanhe. He wondered if that happened, their young master would fall. But he said that strangely, Chang Sanhe just left their young master alone. It was as if she was waiting for the right time. About a month passed, and the season changed. Since their old lady's death, their young master often found himself lost in thoughts. He said that he could vaguely guess what those thoughts were, and he had to make certain preparations as well. That night, his young master went to the tree where he always left his money, as his promise to him. He left his money in the hole again. He said that it would be the last destination. He just left there. But he suddenly heard a voice saying that just as he expected, his young master would be leaving. Our MC was sitting on the branch of the tree and saying that. He also smiled at him. His young master asked him why he was there again. He said that if his young master had made such a big decision, he would need a considerable amount of money to meet that decision. He gave him the land deed that he hid. He said that it would be a big help to him. His young master said to him that he was waiting for this opportunity, as if he knew that he was leaving there. He said that he waited for him on that chilly night. He said to him that he did not understand why his young master was leaving the Xi family on his own. He said that he had plenty of chances to stand up against their lady Chusanmi. Also, he said that he should have shown the true qualities of being the eldest son of an orthodox noble sect, just like he did to him, and asked him why he hid such exceptional abilities until that point. His young master said that he knew it was the wish of his old granny, and mentioned that his granny didn't want her son and grandson fighting, with the new daughter-in-law causing the downfall of her former son. He also said that his granny wouldn't have wanted such disastrous results. However, he said that now that his grandmother has passed away, there's no reason to adhere to that anymore, and told him not to be mistaken because he would come back soon. He mentioned that the forces targeting them are deeply rooted in the martial arts world, like a snake in the grass. And now that Chusanmi has taken control of their Shi family, the Chu family is likely planning to push him aside. Then, his father will eventually realize, even though it will be too late by then. But he said that as the eldest son of Gansu's first family, he cannot just stand by and watch. He will become even stronger than he is now and handle them all. While saying that, our MC said to him that it's indeed so, and he understands his young master's words well. It seems even his young master finds it difficult to become stronger within the current Z family. When his young master asked him what he was trying to say, he mentioned the arrogance and tediousness of the orthodox sects. For example, the best martial arts technique in Gansu, the Byakuak swordsmanship, the fifth form of Byakuak swordsmanship, two-sword style, combines offense and defense with the sword. While explaining it, he said that in order to be able to retreat, he must need to exert more force and push his hips back like that. But he said that their family refuses to adopt that posture, deeming it unimpressive and not fitting for the orthodox sect's style, leaving vulnerabilities. He said that isn't it time for him to go beyond the limitations of his Zai family and see and learn more outside. His young master didn't expect that, and said to him that he was impressed and admitted that his insight was valuable. But surely he was not trying to insult their C family in front of him. When he asked this to him, he said that, of course not, because he also grew up while eating and living in their Sai family, and it just seems that the power of the unorthodox faction is stronger than that of the orthodox. He said that he came there to bid farewell to his young master, who is leaving on a long journey, because he was worried about him. While his young master was getting the scroll that he gave to him, he told him that it's fine whether he becomes orthodox or unorthodox, just to be as he always been, and reminded him not to steal or do anything wrong because he would be the one punishing him. He had one last thing he wanted to ask him, and when he asked what it is, if Suyon is in trouble, just once as he did for him, to help his little sister. He said that Suyon is a clever girl, but just in case, he just needs to continue to show interest in her, like he is doing now. While he was wondering about it, thinking about the interest, he asked what he was talking about, and asked him when he ever showed interest in his lady Suyon. While his young master was laughing at him, he said he was getting worked up about the word interest, and asked him if he really cared about his sister. He also gave the scroll back to him, saying that it was unnecessary, and asked him to do as he pleased with it. As he started to leave, he said he hoped that his mischief would make the world more entertaining, thinking that his young master left with those final words. He said it felt like the last conversation between brothers, which he realized later as time passed by and spring had come. On a beautiful day, our MC was harvesting some herbs, saying that he guessed that should be enough because everyone was waiting for him, so he shouldn't be late. He started to move and go back, saying that as spring approached, the days grew warmer, and it had been less than half a year since his young master left. but he had grown like a bamboo shoot in that time. He thanked that because he managed to handle more tasks and travel around here and there. Each time, he explored the area thoroughly, covering both the village and its surroundings, to ensure the well-being of the people his young master had left behind. He said thankfully that his young master's sister was doing just fine, with no major issues to worry about. Unlike his young master, his young lady had no reason to clash with Chusanmi, and he said his young master probably saw that coming and had faith in his sister's cleverness before he took off by himself. He said he even left behind the last insurance, and it was him. Because of that, he wondered if his young master's ability to influence people with just words showed he was way more powerful than he was. While thinking that in confusion, the other maid was gossiping that someone from the Yayul family was coming there and asking what was happening. When he heard that, he said to them that he was back and gave the herb to them. They said that as expected, his skillful choice was only the prettiest ones. He asked them if there was something else going on, and they said that the Yayul family was sending someone, and it seems they were planning a lengthy stay. They ensured that ample food would be prepared. He said he guessed since it's the main family of Kamsuk Seol, they're mindful of their dignity in various ways, thinking that it was strange because the Yayul family isn't known for receiving generous treatment from the Kamsuk Seol family. While thinking that, there were two kids playing and asking him to see their sword skills, but they were suddenly interrupted when he told them to be quiet and gave them money to go and buy whatever they wanted. They said to him that not just any food, but all that was fitting for a feast table. In such gatherings, he said it seems like there was a celebration happening. While thinking that, he said, "Celebration, huh? A feast for external guests, yet there hasn't been anything worth celebrating in the village recently." While he felt that there was something going to happen, asking himself if his guess was correct. In the room, Chusanmi was giving Suyeon a present and said to her that it was a treasure for her, because the Yayul family's young master seems to have put sincere effort into it for her. She said that now is the time for their Kamsuk Seol family to lead and care for many people, and she believed that Suyeon felt the same way. While looking at this, she seemed a bit worried about it, while Chusanmi said to her that with the family head occupied and because their young master went without words as the eldest daughter, it falls upon him to manage significant external affairs. She pleaded with her to understand it and support her for the family, while she was a bit unhappy about it, quietly staring into nothing. Our MC was practicing swordsmanship in the backyard, saying that Suyeon continued her routine quietly, and because his younger master's absence, attempts were made not just to leverage external forces for control over the Kamsuk Seol family, and he said that they even tried to sell out Suyeon as a tool. As a servant of the Kamsuk Seol family, there are limits to the information he can gather, and if his young lady goes elsewhere, all that's left for him to do is, while thinking that he was so bothered by that. He said that damn white crane swordsmanship is not what he wanted to learn. But suddenly, he was interrupted by these two and called him a brat, asking him why he was swinging a wooden stick. While wondering why these two were there, this guy called Sang-il was bullying him, saying that he was an insolent child, and asking him what he was doing with such arrogance. He replied while bowing to them that he was cleaning up the debris scattered around the firewood. The guy thought that for him, it just looked like picking up tree branches, while this guy grabbed the branch in his hand. While he was thinking if these two were up to something again, this guy said to him that he heard he had been secretly watching his father's martial arts training each morning, and he said to him that as their lowly servant, he wanted to learn martial arts. He asked if he wanted to learn from him, while he thought he had some bad intentions. Now that bastard Sang-il hit him, and he fell down on the ground, saying to him, "How about that? I'll personally teach you how to use a sword." While he saw what these two were up to, saying that they were investigating the Kamsuk Seol family servants under Chusanmi's orders, they ordered him to get up while they laughed at him and said that from now on he would swing that wooden stick at him. They asked him to try to defend himself, and asked why he was so hesitant and if he didn't want to do it, while he thought that no matter what happened, he would act normally as he had been doing. But this bastard was so eager to beat him up, and rashly attacked him again, saying that he had no sense of respect. While he was thinking if he really wanted to get beaten by a nobody like him, who wasn't even a master, he dodged the attack, and that guy fell to the ground. While Sang-il saw this, he grabbed him and locked him, saying to his brother to show him what he had got. Sang-il said that, how dare he evade his strike so brazenly, and because of that, he left a mark on his precious face, and punched him in the stomach, saying that he was a damn brat who mooches off their house. While saying this to him, he continued to beat him up, while he thought that he got angry for no reason and escalated the situation. Now he had no choice but to endure the hits until the brat, Seol Sang-il, tired of it, and said that those kids always made things difficult for him. He said that if his young master had taken the land deed, he might have been free, and said, "How can a lowly brat like him do it?" While he was wondering that it would be great if someday he could meet up with his young master again, with his impressive martial arts skills, yet here he was, a lowly servant who swung a wooden stick. He guessed it was only natural to take hits because of his low status. Learning swordsmanship seemed like a distant fantasy. It was clear that he would likely perish from a single blow from his young master, and in this condition, neither Su Yayan nor anyone else would be capable of protecting anything. He would probably be crawling in the dirt, unable to distinguish between heaven and earth, and saying if he were to see him in such a pathetic state later, it would be his fault. While wondering this, he said to himself that he hated it all, and said nothing had changed from the past, even his situation, where he was getting beaten by a weak punch that was nowhere near as powerful as a tenth of his young master's. He said that was truly sickening. While his young lady, Su Yeon, suddenly appeared to save him, and she said to them, "What the hell are you doing to him?" While the two of them were surprised and didn't expect to see her beating up their servant. After that, these two finally stopped beating him and left. While he was in that state, he thought he was embarrassed because the person he should be protecting was actually protecting him, and she said to him that next time he will definitely. While he was not finishing his word, his grandpa pinched him in the face, saying to him that he needed to come to his senses, and making fun of him, saying that given that he was talking in his sleep, it appears that he was deeply upset about being hit. He was so surprised about that and didn't expect it. His grandpa said to him that he was always the type to dodge trouble, and asked him what went wrong this time, while checking his body and wondering why it didn't hurt as much. He asked if his injury was healed already, and asked his grandpa how long he had been lying down. His grandpa said to him that a whole day had passed, and it was about the same time as when he was beaten to the ground yesterday. While hearing that, he remembered that yesterday he definitely met his young lady Su-yeon. While he was unconscious, his young lady was saying to him that his ribs were injured, that if left untreated, his abdomen may swell, making movement challenging. So she started to heal him with her skill, pointing her fingers to his injured ribs, saying that Sang-il deliberately inflicted the most painful wounds to him, and she would apologize for that on his behalf. While she was focusing on treating him, she said to him that he would feel better soon and managed his blood pressure to alleviate the pain, saying to him that he could rest now. While thinking about that, he was a bit ashamed, while his grandpa, seeing this, asked him if he was so sad about their eldest lady getting married, while he wondered, and said to him, "What kind of nonsense is that all of a sudden?" asking his grandpa. His grandpa said to him that was just how it is at their age, and asked him if he didn't get the news, and said to him if the eldest lady's marriage made him angry enough to have a fight with their young master. He said to him if he thinks he was stupid, while his grandpa said to him that it doesn't really matter, even if fools attempt to contest their choices. While he was looking at that seriously, he said to his grandpa that if he was concerned about their eldest lady's departure too, and asked if he was right, while his grandpa suddenly screamed at him and said what he was talking about all of a sudden, while he was suppressed, and said to him that he didn't need to scream like that because his ribs would tremble. But he said that now he thought about it. That wasn't he originally living with Jong-woon, that the fact that Su-yeon sent him there, and said that isn't it because of his strong ties to the Seol family and his reputation as a reliable individual. While his grandpa heard this, he seemed a bit surprised, while he all said that it made sense now because he recalled how sad his grandpa was at their old lady's funeral. He asked his grandpa what kind of relationship he had with their old lady, and said that he can say that it is similar to him trying to protect their lady Su-yeon. While his grandpa was asking him what he meant by that, now he told his grandpa about what had happened in the Seol family so far, and the land document event between Chang Sanmi and their young master, and the misdeeds of Seol Sang-il and Seol Sang-hee under their family's observation, and Su-yeon's sudden marriage news, and his suspicion that everything involving Chusanmi seems murky. While his grandpa heard this story, he also added that he said it was suspicious that Chusami is rushing into those marriages. While his grandpa was saying to him that it really made him worried, and asked him if he hadn't spent his life deceiving others, and asked him why he was revealing his true feelings now. While he was confused about what his grandpa was saying and asking that to him, his grandpa asked him if he was always mocking him, the one who raised him, and said to him that he was an evil bastard brat. He made some excuses, saying that he heard that a lot, but he didn't mean to make fun of him, and said that he couldn't speak because his stomach hurt. While his grandpa looked at him like that, thinking his brat was avoiding it. Well, his grandpa said to him that he heard his ribs were damaged, and their eldest lady prevented blood clots, so at least he was spared from the pain, saying that capturing blood means that an individual who has learned martial arts can regulate the internal energy flow and eliminate blood clots. And it's all thanks to her that he can talk right now after he was beaten that badly. Now, he said that he needed to try to follow him to what he did. He would teach him how to breathe comfortably. While he was asking his grandpa if he also studied martial arts, his grandpa said to him that they would talk about that later, and what they needed to do now was to stabilize his breathing, telling him to breathe in slowly and exhale. While he was watching his grandpa, he started to follow his instructions, and said that the breathing technique he tried for the first time allowed refreshing energy to flow into his body. And after taking a few breaths, his pain soon went away, and his body felt much more comfortable and lighter. He said to his grandpa that it was so incredible, and said that the breathing technique he developed was amazing. While his grandpa said to him that he was a wanderer, he met an old man with a strange appearance in the mountain, and gave him some raisins and alcohol, and he gave him a book. And he learned from that by reading the book, saying perhaps that old man was a martial arts master, unknown to the wider world. While his grandpa was telling him that, his grandpa was getting something, and said that he knew that he was also a smart one, so he would give that to him, so he might as well read that book by himself, saying that he knew that he was going to keep lying to him anyway, and told him that he needed to rest for a full day because his injury was not fully recovered, and said to him that he only managed to read the first chapter of the book, and he didn't go any further. While his grandpa was giving the book to him, his grandpa said that if he was interested in martial arts, that book could be his opportunity, so he needed to take it. While he was wondering about that old man, a strange-looking old man who knows that breathing technique, and thinking about what kind of person he was, his grandpa said to him that he needed to rest now. While he asked his grandpa where he was going, while his grandpa said to him that he was going to inform Yongun that he would be staying there for a while. And based on their conversation, he had come to learn something about him, and he was so glad that their young master had acknowledged him. While saying that to him and leaving, our MC was confused and said that he was glad too, and it meant a lot to him. While he was looking at the book and reading it, saying that there is heaven and earth and there are people in them. People are born and live imbued with the energy of heaven and earth, by aligning and merging with that energy, and you can have control over all things. And said that isn't it from their parents that they are born, saying how can heaven and earth be responsible for their birth? That there are all kinds of strange sayings, and that was the first part of the book was mostly written like that. And the story continued for a long time, almost to the margin. But the moment he read that one sentence, he was able to understand the feelings of the old man who wrote the book, that he was born too weak, so he gave up on everything to pursue strength. So he said that there he left behind a breathing technique that is the most fundamental part of his strength, that those seeking strength can through continuous training and achieving feats as formidable as uprooting Mount Tai. After understanding it, he started to cultivate using that breathing technique, and said that even though he was lying filled with the initial breath of the book, the pain he had was gone, and he must master that breathing technique to freely control his body, saying that the 5 and 6 breathing technique was so difficult and he was so tired doing it, complaining that he was only 7 breaths, saying that the 8th is so challenging, and it must be an amazing technique, and saying that the pain was completely gone now when he practiced that breathing technique. And he was confused. He said that the elder who wrote the book was quite extraordinary, and said that it really can't be that so easy. While thinking that he lay down on the ground and said that he would master everything in that book that his grandpa offered, but suddenly he surprised and didn't expect that their Lady Suyun would come to him while he was lying down. After Lady Suyun arrived, the conversation shifted to them. He expressed his surprise that she would come to such a shabby place due to a misunderstanding. She explained that she came to check on his health and wanted to know how he was feeling. She also apologized on behalf of her siblings for their mistake. He reassured her that there was no need for apologies because she had taken care of him and prevented his pain from worsening. However, she insisted that she was worried he might be more hurt than he let on. He felt ashamed and assured her that he was fine now, as long as he didn't get scolded for letting her into his shabby room. She laughed and asked if she had made him worry. Before leaving, she left some medicine to ensure his complete healing and bid him goodbye, saying they would meet again. She asked him to thank his grandfather on her behalf. Though he seemed sad when Lady Suyeon left, he returned to his task of getting the book. While reading, he realized that it was not just a punch he could take lightly, considering how much Lady Suyeon had worried about him. He resolved to become stronger and began cultivating the 10 breathing technique, gradually increasing it to 20. He focused on infusing each breath with sincerity and heart, letting go of the numbers and losing himself in the process. An hour passed, and when he opened his eyes, his grandfather suddenly returned and questioned why he was still awake at such a late hour. He was surprised to see that it was nighttime when he looked out the window. Confused, he asked his grandfather how long he had been away. His grandfather replied that he had been gone for more than half a day. This revelation shocked him, as he had only intended to cultivate for half an hour. His grandfather expressed concern about his well-being, particularly his injured coccyx. However, upon examination, he realized that he felt no discomfort, and instead felt energy coursing through his body. Relieved, his grandfather shared a story with him and invited him to sit beside him. Curious, he asked where his grandfather had been and why he had brought a bundle. His grandfather explained that he had gone to organize his things and remembered a story about 2 families fighting for dominance over Honam Castle. One was the Meteor Sword Gate, founded by a remarkable figure named Danmokshun, and the other was the White Dragon Fortress, a smaller and lesser-known family. Surprisingly, it was the White Dragon Fortress with its unconventional martial arts that emerged victorious, despite the Baekdo Alliance predicting the Meteor Sword Gate's victory. After the battle, both families disappeared from the world, as if they had absorbed each other. However, recently, the successor of the White Dragon Fortress had revealed themselves. As his grandfather shared this story, he wondered if that person was the Yayulse, and if so, the Chusami should be in alliance with them. While thinking about this, his grandpa said to him that he had done some digging, but there was oddly scarce information about their young lady's husband. However, he remembered that Noma used to mention it as a habit, and she seemed to know a lot about it. So, he had been observing and keeping an eye on their prince and their young lady. Now, he understood a bit of it. His grandpa told him that was all he knew, and mentioned that he had thoroughly investigated the potential danger in their young lady's marriage. Perhaps from tomorrow onwards, he would uncover more about the Yayulsi family. While asking his grandpa about the bundle and where he got those things, his grandpa explained that it was a clothes that Noma made for him in his younger days. He kept it because he couldn't bear to wear or touch it. But since Noma left only that for him, he had to bring it. Upon hearing this, he told his grandpa that he understood his feelings, but wondered if it was too much for himself. His grandpa replied that he didn't understand, because an old man like him needed to figure things out before taking action. He advised him to watch out so he wouldn't end up in any mess. He replied that even though he wasn't as smart as his grandpa, he was an old man who had been through it all. Besides, while he wasn't around, he asked him to protect their young lady the most. After that conversation, his grandpa Huang left the Kamsok Seol early in the morning. He thought that Noma must have been a special person to his grandpa. But now, with Noma and his grandpa both gone, only their Miss Suyeon remained. He wondered if he had burdened the only man with his troubles. But he found himself in a similar position. Instead of saving their miss, he found himself in a situation where he was saved. He realized that he needed to become stronger. He asked his grandpa how he became stronger. While inhaling, he wondered if it was for vengeance, for justice like his grandpa Huang, or if it was to protect loved ones like his grandpa Huang. But he said to himself that it was neither. He just wanted to live a life without regrets. He said that having grown up as an orphan, serving in the homes of others, he yearned to blaze his own trail. As a being transcendent of ordinary limits, who could overcome all of that? He focused on his cultivation. He thought that the path of evil and magic was much more suitable than the boring path of righteousness. That's why he chose the path of magic. He realized that he couldn't protect their Miss Suyeon right now, but he was thankful that she was smart and would get through tough times by herself. As they walked their own paths, he said that he too must seek his own path. He admitted that he didn't completely understand his grandpa's feelings, but he watched him leave their house as if he was chasing after Noma, whom he had cherished his whole life. He thought that his choices were different from what he desired. While thinking about all of that, a guy called him and he turned around. After seeing who it was, he called him Uncle Jong-woon. His Uncle Jong-woon said that considering how much he liked to wander, he was just worried that he might have met his end since he had been missing in action. He assured his uncle that he felt a bit unwell, but he was fine. He was happy to see his uncle with a potato. His uncle mentioned that because he wasn't working and staying in the room all day, it made his face look pale. He gave him the potatoes, and he iced some. His uncle asked him if their grandpa Huang didn't come back after a few days, he could take those clothes. He asked if he understood what that meant. Hearing that, he suddenly stopped eating and became nervous. He realized that there was a big problem with his grandpa, and he thought that his grandpa must have encountered some trouble. He confirmed it, and asked his uncle if his grandpa Huang really said that to him. His uncle confirmed that it was true, and explained that their grandpa Huang had said that. Their madam had sent him on some errand, and he went quite far. Lately their grandpa seemed to be burdened with a lot on his mind. Hearing this, he had no doubt that their grandpa was caught red-handed, and it is revealed that someone who had been deceiving Chusanmi for decades was discovered quickly. Seol Sang-il and Seol Sang-hee's suspicious behavior was not without reason. Chusanmi is trying to eliminate all remnants of the Kamsuk-Seol family before Soo-yeon's marriage. With his young master gone, she can now easily get rid of his grandfather. It is only a matter of time before he, who recently spent time with his grandfather, becomes suspicious. He realizes he needs to act quickly. In his room, he looks at the bundle his grandfather brought and opens it. He thinks to himself that he will never forget his grandfather and vows to avenge him. Inside the bundle, he finds clothes and decides to wear them. He remembers his young master's words about helping his sister Soo-yeon and realizes that now is the time he spoke of. He acknowledges that the situation is not favorable, but he can offer a small amount of help and promises to ensure nothing happens to her. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon sits by the window, feeling sad and thinking about her missing grandfather, Huang. She senses that something is about to happen. Suddenly, her maid enters and tells her that Jaewon Yeop, our MC, gave her something that belongs to her. Soo-yeon is confused as she looks at the bundle. She takes it and thanks her maid, telling her to leave quickly. As soon as the maid leaves, Soo-yeon opens the bundle and discovers her father's land deed, which Seol Subeom almost took the blame for. She also finds a book, possibly a diary. She starts reading it and realizes it is a message from our MC, apologizing for only being able to help her indirectly. He informs her that by the time she reads his diary, he will have already left the Kamsuk-Seol family. He warns her that the person she is about to marry is dangerous and hiding their true identity. Despite the absence of her young master, grandfather, and our MC, he believes she can handle the situation wisely. He sincerely pleads with her to escape from their family and go somewhere else. The scene changes to another servant and errand worker of the family, who notice our MC passing by. They wonder who he is since they have never seen him before. One of them notices something shining in his bag and discovers a gold coin. They are all confused and wonder who is leaving them gold coins. Even our MC's uncle is puzzled by the situation. Finally, our MC is ready to leave and considers the gold coins as compensation for their hard work. He feels that he has settled all the debts in his heart and no longer has any attachments to them or the Kamsuk-Seol family. Despite living there for over 10 years, he feels different from all of them and has no intention of being tied down. As he looks at the view of his hometown, he declares that from now on, he will only focus on what he has decided to do. He believes that the story of his young master, Lady Soyeon, and himself, Jaewon Yeop, is just beginning. Meanwhile, in Chusanmi's room, a servant informs her that Mr. Huang has finally died without revealing anything. Upon hearing this, she understands and decides to take matters into her own hands. She orders the servant to deal with the body and emphasizes that no one should become an obstacle in completing Soo-yeon's marriage. She is delighted by this development and admits that she never expected an old man with such a ridiculous story to remain in their castle. She believes it was a good decision to have Seol Sang-il and Seol Sang-hee keep an eye on him. With their help, they have eliminated everything that was bothersome in the Kamsuk family. She confidently states that no one can stop them now, not even the insignificant lord. Sang-il and Sang-yi will also fulfill their roles. However, she acknowledges that this is just the beginning. In order to accomplish what they need to do, there can't be a single exception. 5 days later, our MC is walking in the forest, realizing that no one has followed him during that time. He decides to rest for a while. In the middle of the night, he starts cultivating and practicing the breathing technique. And after he finished his business there, it seemed that he would be staying for a while. He mentioned that he planned to spend 10 days there before heading to a rugged mountain to focus on his training. His goal was to master a secret technique that required him to dedicate at least a year, if not 2, to intense training. He sought a martial art that surpassed the orthodox factions, one that was more impressive and superior. Once his training was complete, he vowed to find Lady Su-yun, even if it took several years. He was determined to seek out the enemies who had infiltrated the Kamsuk family and exact his revenge. And once his revenge was complete, he even entertained the idea of challenging his young master. As he pondered all of this, he realized that there was something else he truly desired to obtain with his own hands. Suddenly, he noticed a branch stuck to his feet. A spark of inspiration ignited within him as he picked it up and smiled. Drawing his knife, he declared that he had always been alone since birth. As he scraped the branch, he vowed to live his life as he pleased once everything was over. He felt a sense of liberation as he finished scraping the branch, shaping it into a makeshift sword. With pride and freedom in his heart, he envisioned conquering the vast world. 2 years later, in the Kamsuk family, his uncle was cleaning outside. The young girl remarked on his hard work since morning. He replied that he had only just started sweeping, but it seemed that he too had returned early. Addressing her as auntie, she explained that the new servant from the annex was neglecting his duties. He complained about the servant's arrogance, now that his wife was in charge of the household. She warned him about speaking disrespectfully, reminding him of the consequences if their lady or master were to hear. She then proceeded to describe the current state of the Kamsuk family. The atmosphere had been gloomy ever since their young master and Lady Su-yeon disappeared. People speculated that the Kamsuk family was in decline, living off the remnants of their former glory. They were no longer regarded as the esteemed Kamsuk family. However, she expressed hope that one day their young master would return as a hero and restore the Seol family's greatness. Meanwhile, outside the heavenly demon fortress, Seol Beom stood. The story goes that most individuals who tread the path of evil become corrupted by their martial arts training, engaging in wicked deeds and debauchery. They become enemies of the Murim. Furthermore, they succumb to their inner demons and lose control over their power. Some who choose the path of evil meet their demise through self-destruction or execution. However, there are also those who, despite following the path of evil, remain martial artists with unyielding will. Among the top 10 martial arts masters, only 2 belong to the unorthodox faction: Jae-wi, the unorthodox hero, and his counterpart, the righteous demon. The rest of the martial arts masters hail from the orthodox faction, yet they have all reached the pinnacle of their skills. Their bright and noble nature shines through, even among the masters of the unorthodox faction. This place is none other than the heavenly demon fortress, where the righteous demon, Gal Min-hyuk, resides. Gal Min-hyuk and his granddaughter, Gal Min-ran, were playing Baduk. The girl checkmated her grandpa and laughed at him, teasing that she would beat him again. She reminded him of his promise to teach her martial arts if she won. While she was happy, her grandpa felt ashamed, and explained that teaching her martial arts was dangerous for her safety. His daughter expressed disappointment in her grandpa for not keeping his promise, and pretended to cry to convince him to teach her. As a result, her grandpa believed her skills were improving rapidly and realized he had no choice but to teach her martial arts. He had initially taught her Go, hoping she would stay away from martial arts. He wondered how things had turned out this way. He mentioned Gal Min-hyuk, a renowned martial artist who was once a scholar with no interest in martial arts as a child. However, his talent and physique eventually led him to embrace martial arts after his master begged him persistently. Similarly, Jae-wi's family had always been scholars with no interest in martial arts. Yet, his granddaughter, the apple of his eye, had always possessed a strong desire to learn martial arts. He reminisced about when his granddaughter was young and used to massage his shoulders. Now he felt that she only cared about his martial arts skills. As he pondered, one of his disciples interrupted to inform him that a young guest wished to challenge him. Intrigued, he wanted to hear the disciple's opinion first. The disciple mentioned that it had been a long time since they had such an extraordinary guest. In response, he decided to personally greet the challenger and saw it as an opportunity to escape from his granddaughter's demands. However, his granddaughter stopped him, insisting that they hadn't finished their conversation. He promised to return soon and continue their discussion. She became angry, feeling that her grandpa was once again avoiding her. Meanwhile, the old man arrived with his sect members to meet the challenger. Upon seeing him, he asked if he was the young man who came to challenge the heavenly demon fortress, and inquired about his name. The challenger introduced himself as Musbong, stating that he had no surname and was Musbong of Nothingness. He greeted him and expressed his intention to challenge the lord of the heavenly demon fortress. This declaration surprised and puzzled his disciples' members, who questioned if the challenger was serious about challenging their lord. They criticized him, calling him a fool for thinking he could request a challenge with such an introduction. They deemed him reckless and uncaring about his own life. However, Musbong calmly and respectfully explained that he never dared to challenge their lord directly. His true desire was to find enlightenment within the fortress walls, in any form it may appear. The old man observed Musbong's provocative yet humble demeanor and recognized his straightforward spirit. He hadn't felt this kind of energy in a long time. Curious, he asked if Musbong would like to play Baduk. While he replied that he could play, the old man said it was fine with him and accepted his challenge. However, he mentioned that in order to challenge his heavenly demon fortress, he must first win a game of Baduk against him. He asked him to follow him and turned around, leading him to the reception of the Baduk match. This was a hurdle that all challengers to the heavenly demon fortress had to overcome. In the past, when many sought to conquer the fortress, Galman Hyuk devised this preliminary test. Although it appeared to be a simple wager on the surface, Baduk was actually a battle of numbers on the battlefield. It required understanding the opponent's moves and exploiting their weaknesses. It was a battle of wits where playing the moves well could gain territory and solidify one's foundation. However, Baduk was also a game where one could be overwhelmed in an instant and walk the path to defeat. Without a strategic mind, one couldn't win a battle of strength. Natural talent and charisma alone couldn't see through the complexities of the world. The old man mentioned that until now, only one person had ever beaten him at Baduk. However, even then, he had only managed to win by half a house. While he listened silently, the old man declared that they needed to start now. An hour passed by, and the two of them seemed intensely focused on the game. His granddaughter and the guy next to her watched in disbelief as they continued playing. She remarked that it was unbelievable that they were still playing, while the guy next to her mentioned that he had won 1 out of the best of 3 games. However, he admitted that the game was proving to be challenging for him. She commented that it had been a long time since the winner was determined, and she hadn't expected it. She told him that he was not a normal guy, while he sweated nervously. The old man thought to himself that he was a genius young man who possessed intelligence beyond his years. Normally, anyone would show mistakes or confusion as time went on, but he was different. Moreover, the old man noted that the moves he made on the board revealed his opponent's character and personality. He said that if a person was clever and quick-witted, they would play like flowing water. If they were upright and honest, they would play like a mountain. However, he described Seolsubeom as a wolf, guarding his territory like iron and never letting go of an approaching enemy. He wondered how he could handle such a formidable opponent and expressed his curiosity about why he wanted to challenge them. If he was as talented as he claimed, he could join any faction and develop much better skills than he currently had. The old man also mentioned that he might be a potential beast, but he was still a cub. He believed that if he pursued his training in a balanced and harmonious way, he would naturally evolve into an unparalleled and powerful entity. Furthermore, the level of his internal energy cultivation showed signs of being refined through the righteous path, suggesting that he came from a distinguished and renowned family. The old man questioned whether someone of his stature would have a reason to challenge them. While thinking about all of this, he told the old man, that he had something he wanted to accomplish. He remembered that he had people waiting for him without a particular reason. He had left behind someone dear to him, whom he couldn't take along, and had parted ways with someone who had a promising future ahead. Because of all this, he had made a solemn oath with them, and needed to hasten his steps on the path ahead. Remembering all of this, he told him that he had only reached that point because he hurried to fulfill his intentions. The old man seemed happy, and said to him that when it comes to decisive matters, there is no hesitation. He believed that he was destined for greatness, and that if he didn't get caught up in his thoughts, he could achieve even more. As he looked at the board, the old man made his move, and the tide seemed to turn. He wondered how this had happened so quickly, while he was lost in contemplation. He admitted that the old man was indeed a formidable opponent, and accepted his defeat. The old man asked him if he wanted to challenge him to a sparring match, and he confirmed that he genuinely wanted to compete with him. He admitted that he had never thought about taking on someone like him, because he didn't believe he had a shot at winning. However, he thought that if he were to spar with him, who had been regarded as a great master for many years, he would undoubtedly gain great enlightenment on his own. The old man thought to himself that his humility was impressive and that he was an admirable individual. He told him that he was right about that, and called his granddaughter, Minran, asking her to come out for a moment. And he introduced her to him, revealing that she was his granddaughter, Gal Minran. The old man emphasized that playing Baduk was not just about winning bets, but also about enjoying the game itself. However, he made it clear that this did not mean they could disregard the agreed-upon rules. He suggested that his granddaughter, who had received his teachings, spar with him. As they heard this, both of them looked at each other, intrigued by the idea. The old man mentioned that although his granddaughter had recently started her martial arts journey, she was already making great progress in mastering the discipline. He saw this as an opportunity to test his own achievements and thought that they could play another game of Baduk while waiting for the sparring session. However, his granddaughter complained that she had only recently taught him martial arts and demanded to compete against a master. Her grandpa seemed to be making excuses and neglecting her training for the past 3 days. In response, he told her that it was what it was, and mentioned that the young man challenging him was around her age. She insisted that her grandpa should have taught her properly, and asked for the opportunity to prove it herself. She promised that if he granted her request, she would diligently learn from him every day starting the following week. Her grandpa accepted her demands, and she agreed to the arrangement. As time passed, the day of the sparring session between the two arrived. The Mado castle was packed with a huge crowd, which was even more astonishing than expected. The young man fearlessly challenged Lord Galman Hyuk, showing great determination and stubbornness just by his appearance alone. He couldn't help but be surprised by the strong aura emanating from the crowd. Although they were currently calm, he knew that chaos could erupt at any moment, turning into a ferocious tidal wave. However, Lord Galman, the old man, was firmly containing and controlling the situation, showcasing his remarkable character. Knowing that his opponent was the granddaughter of a renowned martial artist, the young man understood that he couldn't let his guard down. Lord Galman noticed the tension in his presence, and his wife, So Chi-young, asked if he found it amusing to offer his granddaughter in a match of Baduk. Nervously, he clarified that he didn't mean it to that extent. So Chi-young questioned the decision, considering that the young man would be sticking around for the sparring session. She pointed out that he would likely obsess over playing another game of Baduk during that time, just like their granddaughter. She reminded him that he had always refused to teach her martial arts due to the dangers, yet now he entrusted her to spar with a stranger. Lord Galman assured her that he had conducted a thorough search and made sure the young man's martial arts engagement was with the Heavenly Demon Fortress sword. He asked her not to worry too much. As the two of them introduced themselves and showed respect for each other, she asked him to take care of her, addressing him as a young master. She admitted that she seemed younger and less knowledgeable than him, but requested to take the initiative. He acknowledged her modesty and agreed. The girl was overjoyed and began attacking him, urging him not to hold back. Their swords clashed, and he couldn't help but notice the girl's impressive swordsmanship. He realized that her skills were truly exceptional. She touched his shoulders, acknowledging his formidable defense, and swiftly jumped through his back to attack him. However, he managed to dodge her attack. She remarked that it was a close call and stepped back. He hadn't expected her to be so impressive and adaptable. She displayed flexibility and quick decision-making in the heat of the moment. He knew that if he let his guard down, he would be pierced by her sword. The girl wondered why her grandfather had his eye on him and infused her sword with an aura, challenging him to handle her powerful technique.